Hello and welcome to Culture Shocked, the pop culture podcast brought to you by four aging millennials and our outdated opinions. I'm your host, Doug, and with me as always is...
Hey, I'm Adrian, and if any of these guys say one bad word about the Sam Raimi trilogy, I'm going to put some dirt in their eye.
You know, I'm something of a scientist myself, and my name's Mike. Corey is ready.
Great openings, guys. Now bring me pictures of Spider-Man!
And let it be noted that we all brought up a Sam Raimi quote for our opening.
Edit that out.
He's been asking for pictures of Spider-Man long before Sam Raimi ever touched the suit. There's one thing that's true in this world, is that J. Jonah Jameson is going to laugh at you and then tell you to bring him pictures of Spider-Man. All right, today, if you haven't caught on, there's a little wall-crawling, web-slinging superhero with an upcoming film. It's probably going to make it his greatest trilogy to date when it releases.
Yeah.
So today we're gonna talk about Spider-Man, superheroes and their origin stories. We have been forced to rewatch them. We didn't have to do that this time. We got a little change of pace. What did you guys think about that? Do you think they should have given us Tom Holland's intro to the world?
No, I actually kind of like the clever way that he just kind of told Ned in passing that a spider bit him, and Ned asked, well, if the spider bites me, will I get powers? And he goes, the spider's dead, Ned. I like how it was just kind of his whole origin there. And I don't know. There's actually still a chance that we get some flashbacks of a Ben story or an origin. They actually said they might still touch on it. It's just going to be more of a flash or like a dream sequence. But they also did just renew Tom Holland for Spider-Man for 3 more movies. So they're going to touch on Ben at some point.
Yeah, it's pretty unavoidable. I really liked how he was introduced, just tossed into like Civil War. He was just like, all of a sudden, oh yeah, I brought this new guy. And he just there, and he just kicks ass naturally because he's Spider-Man. And
right into the thick of things.
Under loose.
Adrian, I don't think it's going to be a secret. We're going to have some disagreements today. So I don't think we need to hide the fact that you like Sam Raimi's trilogy. We can probably just throw that out there. What do you think about the origin story being skipped?
There are no better movies than the Sam Raimi trilogy, first of all.
Oh, God.
Wait, hold up. Are you saying, but he's saying no better movies, and like, are you talking about movies, like all movies?
To find answers to that question, refer to our episode on movies.
I'm talking about an entire series of like the trilogy of Sam Raimi. Even Spider-Man 3, if you take out Venom, I think that is a good movie. The comedy in it is very Sam Raimi. I think it's intentional. From the first movie, it was pretty poignant that Sam Raimi was going for the corny, the over-the-top. And if you watch some of his other movies, Sam Raimi enjoys that type of humor, and he plays into it very well. Venom was a terrible character because, and it is widely known by now, Sam Raimi didn't want to include Venom in the series. He didn't want to. I know
you've been holding this in, but we'll get to that. But for now, let's just stick to the origin story not being present.
No, I actually do enjoy that they didn't do an origin story for Tom Holland's Spider-Man. I'm okay with that angle completely. My only issue with it is that I personally feel like, and disclaimer, I'm not a comic fan, so I don't know how the comics work, but in the Spider-Mans that I've seen, Uncle Ben is one of Spider-Man, Peter Parker's biggest character arcs, and he's just not talked about at all in these movies. I love Marissa Tomei. I feel like this is the weakest Aunt May and Peter Parker connection out of all 3 trilogies. I would put Sally Field and Andrew Garfield above this. Obviously, my favorite is Rosemary Harris and Tobey Maguire, but this is the weakest Tobey Maguire and... I'm sorry.
Damn.
This is the weakest.
Tell us how you really feel.
Let me tell you,
the
MCU is the weakest Tobey Maguire.
Adrian has such a hard-on for the Sam Raimi movies that he calls Peter Parker Tobey Maguire.
No.
So ingrained.
But in my opinion, I do love Tom Holland's Peter Parker and his Spider-Man, but this is the weakest Peter Parker and Aunt May connection out of all three series.
It's more like buddies.
It's without, yeah, because there's no. I guess that is the downside to having no origin story. Is we just have to accept this is them. We don't really get told why.
And there's just no heart to it. Like, even after he disappears for after the snap, what is it, 5 years, and he comes back, like, Aunt May is just totally fine with him being Spider-Man again, and she's just fine with like if I was his aunt, I would be worried about everything. Like, I don't know, to me, I just didn't feel that connection there. Whereas Sam Raimi trilogy and even the Mark Webb 2-movie series, there's a lot more heart there between these two characters. In my opinion, as much as I love Marissa Tomei, this is the weakest connection between Peter and Aunt May. And I love Tom Holland's Spider-Man and his Peter Parker. I really do.
To be completely fair, Aunt May was also snapped.
Oh, was she?
They released a list of who all was snapped and not snapped when Endgame came out, and she was snapped.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Wasn't his entire class also
Pretty
snapped?
much, well, not entire class, but his entire core group, like Ned and Betsy Brandt and MJ, they were all snapped, yes.
Which is why they were suddenly younger and led to that whole scene on the bus.
That's just lazy writing.
But let me ask you guys something real quick. Do you agree that Marissa Tomei is the weakest Aunt May, or do you not feel that way?
I do feel like she's the weakest. Mainly because Aunt May always in the comics and the cartoons was this super loving, heartfelt, warm older lady who just took him in and treated him almost more like a grandma than an aunt.
And she was always, grandmotherly age.
Yeah, I don't know why they just the Aunt May has progressively got younger.
Got younger and younger.
It's because this Peter is a high school, which is really weird to me.
So you could almost say, as far as the loving grandma, Rosemary Harris in the Sam Raimi trilogy is the perfect Aunt May.
Other than the atrocious acting of that Aunt May, she is the best Aunt May.
Stop trying to skip topics.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. I get the way I look at it is they chose him. This is probably why they chose to make him so young instead of focusing on
He definitely feels the youngest.
Oh, he is the youngest. He's
right because Tobey Maguire was in his mid-30s.
Yeah,
Andrew Garfield was mid-20s, and Tom Holland was 20 years old.
Tobey Maguire, I think, was 27
I didn't mean
when he
the
started.
actor. I meant in character. This is the youngest version of Peter Parker. He's not
right, and he felt
the
young. Yeah.
Tom Holland's perfect for the role because at age 20 he looks 13.
Totally.
He doesn't hide that fact. I think that's why they chose to make him this young though. So instead of focusing on his Peter Parker relationships with Aunt May and stuff, they do that through Ned and MJ at school and that aspect of his life, which it's different. It's weird. There's a lot of parts of it that don't have that old standard Spider-Man scene, if you will. I think that's why they just skipped the whole origin story though, because that wasn't what they were trying to focus on with this version of Spider-Man. It's just a different.
And honestly, I like the way they incorporated him in Homecoming. Homecoming started with his recordings for Civil War. I actually really like that. I did.
I loved that.
And you mentioned with just his story through other characters. I love Ned being a Sam Raimi shill. I would have liked to seen Harry Osborn, but that's just a nitpick. I love Ned is a great character.
In the comics, Ned becomes Hobgoblin.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if they plan on doing that. They've never said. But in the comics, Ned is married to Betsy Brandt, the girl he dates in the second movie.
Oh, yeah.
For that trip. He's actually married to her, and he becomes Hobgoblin.
Really? Okay,
Yes.
That's cool. These are the kind of things I want you to fill me in on as we go, because I'm not a comic person.
The way Ned is set up in these movies, it didn't even cross my mind that was the same character.
I would never see him as a villain.
Yeah, I just can't see that ever happening.
I just don't think so. But that actor, I'm sorry, his name is escaping me, but the actor who plays Ned has been significantly losing weight throughout these movies. He's actually pretty small right now. And I don't know, they might be going for that angle because Hobgoblin was he was kind of like the Goblin. He flew around on something. He threw pumpkin bombs.
Actually, I actually have a thought now, but before we go that route, Mike, let's get your take on the lack of the origin story this time around.
I'm a big fan of them skipping it too. And I think honestly, you guys have like all these theories. I think it's just as simple as we've seen it, been there, done that.
Well, they did say that.
We know what it. That's why like you're talking about a disconnect because we don't. The heart's not there. We know what happened.
Kevin
Like,
Feige.
we don't need to see
Feige.
that.
Kevin Feige.
Kevin Feige and Amy Pascal came out in an interview and said they're just skipping the Uncle Ben origin because we've seen it too many times. We don't need it this time.
Exactly. So I don't think there was anything other than that for the reason why they did it. Like
I honestly feel like in my heart of hearts, tell me if I'm wrong in the Ultimate Spider-Man comic series and the Spider-Man comic series, but Uncle Ben's death is like a defining characteristic of Peter Parker. And
It kind of always is, yeah.
It's never even brought up in this series.
It's just as synonymous to Peter Parker as the death of
As Richard, his dad, Richard.
Right.
Yeah.
Uncle Ben always is kind of mentioned in the comics and the old
Should
cartoons.
Uncle Ben have been mentioned or brought up a little bit in the MCU, or do you feel like it was fine how they did it?
They kind of replaced him with Tony.
They did, and that's a major issue I have with the movies.
Tony's death is kind of like that precursor now.
Peter Parker's already dealt with the death of Ben, but it's just glossed over. It's never talked about. I understand skipping his origin story, and even though I'm a sucker for origin stories, it's Uncle Ben is never brought up by Aunt May. It's never brought up by Peter, and Tony Stark kind of takes the place of Uncle Ben. Good, Mike.
No, I'm sorry. I would actually agree with that. I think that aside from agreeing with them skipping the origin story, it is kind of messed up that Ben's never even mentioned.
Is it possible that there is no Uncle Ben to this Peter Parker?
They reference Uncle Ben a couple times in the movies.
In Civil War, they kind of reference.
Yeah, well, I guess what I meant by that is that there was the unfortunate he passed away, but
yeah, they almost said the line without saying the line.
But is it possible that his death wasn't like this situation because Peter wasn't even that yet?
I kind of think maybe in this MCU version, Uncle Ben's been dead a while now, and maybe he doesn't quite have that connection with Uncle Ben in this universe that he had in the other one.
I get that.
He didn't have the power when Ben died in this one.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
Perhaps. Or
They've
something.
left it so open that we can kind of just guess.
I have a theory and about the upcoming movie in regards to this.
Well, don't they say, doesn't he kind of make a reference to like just trying to look out for the little guy? Because, he wished it kind of seems like he alludes to the idea that maybe if he had the abilities that he had now, he would have been able to do something about, what happened in the past, which they never mentioned Ben or anything like that. But
right, they keep it pretty open-ended. Doug, what is your theory?
Obviously, we only know what we know from the trailer and the little investigations that have been done, but we're seeing villains and being alluded to other versions of him that we've seen before with different origins and basically a massive Doctor Strange. Doctor Strange hasn't actual power, hasn't really been showcased. Like when he, manipulates reality, he's really manipulating reality. There might be some pieces of the puzzle that you felt have been missing that are going to be finally socketed into place in this film, if I had to guess.
In the trailer, I do actually have a bit of a theory, because at the end, when he's standing up on the Statue of Liberty and he says they're starting to come through and I can't control them, I can't keep them out,
I can't stop them, or whatever he says.
It's not the yellow light of his spell anymore. It's the purple cracks in time that if you've seen Loki at the end when they... Doug, do you want to...
Just go ahead.
I'm going to say
go
something.
ahead. This is my fault at this point.
Well, because, I think everybody knows now that Kang was at the end of Loki. Like, the actor who's going to play Kang
right,
was at the end of Loki. Kang the Conqueror. He's going to be the main villain in Ant-Man and Wasp 3.
Liu Kang.
Yes, exactly. But
what
Kang from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
At the end of that, a event transpires in Loki. I won't say what that is, but the time starts splitting, and all these splits are purple light with white lights coming through. And in the trailer, if you're looking in the background, when he says they're starting to come through, it's all purple. It's not his light. I think what happened in Loki is starting to affect our world. I don't think it's all the spell that they did. I think part of it is what happens in Loki.
Oh,
the spell could have just been like the triggering.
Could have just been part of it.
Okay.
Did the spell bring on what Kang is doing?
This is such a hard conversation to have without you guys seeing Loki, because no.
So this makes more sense for them. Just give like a little bit of info on Kang, so this can be more relevant to anyone who's unfamiliar.
Kang has multiple versions of himself throughout the universes, who they're basically the Time Lords who keep track of everything time related. And at one point they all got together and they decided that they were just going to basically control everything and be basically Genghis Khan. They were just going to take over everything. They were going to control everything, and they were just going to not let people have free will anymore. And the one Kang, I don't remember, they have different names, and I'm not this far into the lore to know. One Kang he's more human, but he's powerful, and he kind of locks them all away so they can't do that. And something happens in Loki that makes him lose that control over them. And he warns Loki if he does what he does. I'm not going to say what it is, but if he does what he does, they're going to release those other Kangs, and he's not going to like what happens. Because he's been controlling the flow of time and keeping things the way they need to be for centuries upon centuries. And if what happens in Loki, he's not going to like the results. And that's what ends up happening at the end of Loki.
So you think what they showed in the trailer of No Way Home is maybe a result of the end of Loki?
My personal opinion is because of the way the light is, and if you've watched everything up to here, it's very reminiscent of the light that's kind of going around in Loki when the time's splitting. Yes, I think
he says like they're coming through and I can't stop them.
I think that it's partly Kang.
Just time, or is it multi-dimension?
It's all of time and all dimensions.
Okay, so yeah, which explains why we're, that you're not Peter, and we're hearing.
Yes.
Right.
If it's not Willem Dafoe, I will eat my keyboard.
It's better be Willem Dafoe.
If you listen in the trailer, Doctor Strange says they all died by the hands of Spider-Man, but a couple of those villains didn't in the movies. So where are they from? Is that Electro even this Electro? Is that Sandman even the one we've seen? They're going to be played by the same actors. That's already been confirmed. But are they the ones? Is Thomas Hayden Church going to be the Thomas Hayden Church from the Sam Raimi universe? Is he from a different one altogether?
That I am kind of curious about. Like, are these villains going to know? Are these villains going to know the lore? Like, are they going to know what happened to them in the Raimi trilogy, in the Andrew Garfield, like Mark Webb trilogy? Or are they just going to be like...
I don't think they are really any more aware of what's going on than anyone else is.
I mean, Doc Ock clearly knows what's going on in the Raimi.
He does.
Yeah.
He's
kind of.
Well, no.
You're not.
He's
Parker.
confused as to why this Spider-Man isn't the Spider-Man he expects, so he's not aware that he's suddenly somewhere
I have
different.
so many comic book things running through my head.
We got to be careful because they don't follow the comics exactly.
Adrian was saying that, are they going to be aware of the Raimi-verse?
No, but in the comics, there's a very heavy storyline where Green Goblin's actually orchestrating all of this and bringing the Sinister Six from different universes to one that they want to kill Spider-Man. And I think Green Goblin's going to be the main villain of this movie. I don't think Doc Ock's even going to be a villain.
Hell yeah.
I don't think Doc Ock's even going to be a villain the whole movie. I think he's fighting the other ones in that trailer.
Is Doc Ock helping?
Doc Ock is a complicated villain.
He's smart enough to understand that this can't all happen.
I kind of wondered that too, if Doc Ock is actually helping.
I think we can confidently say Sinister Six is
Yeah, they just haven't shown the sixth villain yet.
I'm pretty sure I know who the sixth villain is.
I have a question after.
Well, if you know who the Sinister Six is, you know who the sixth villain is,
right?
And
probably
they've showed it actually.
But to be fair, of the original lineup, Sandman was never there, so
right.
They've already changed one.
The Ferocious Five.
It's definitely going to be Rhino from the.
Wait,
Amazing
but you don't want
movie.
Paul Giamatti's Rhino, do you?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, that one.
And Paul Giamatti, it wasn't his fault. It was.
No, he's a great actor.
We'll get into that.
Okay, Rhino is a really cliche type villain. Like, there's no special world where he's like this badass anyone's favorite.
You're right. But the Amazing Spider-Man Rhino is fucking awful.
He's an idiot who charges like a rhino. That's what he's
It's a Rhino.
He's someone who's brought along by another villain as the muscle. All
He's
the
just a
time.
guy that's shouting his own name while driving a fucking truck.
I think it's going to be complicated for Green Goblin unless unless the Green Goblin that we're expecting, because the voice we hear is actually different, and this is this world's Green Goblin showing up, the one from Tom Holland's universe, but it just also happens to be Willem Dafoe.
I want to ask you guys something honestly.
Yeah.
In this movie, hypothetically, if all three Spider-Men do appear, I would kind of like to see a conflict between the three of them, like the way they approach things. Like, there's one aspect of like all three Spider-Men come in, they kick ass, they take names, and that would be great. I would nerd out. But there's also this other camp where like I would like to see all three's different approaches. And I would kind of like to see some conflict between the three of them.
You've seen the animated movie Into the Spider-Verse, correct?
Right.
And like kind of how all those different Spider-Men struggled.
Yeah, absolutely.
They were all doing things differently, but
absolutely,
they all kind of...
And that's kind of where...
knew how to just like deal with it. And
that's where I kind of get my inspiration from the question. Would you guys like to see like a deeper conflict between the three Spider-Men? Or how do you feel about if they all three do appear?
I expect there to be, if they do appear, just because Tom Holland would be the inexperienced one in this scenario. Like he's the youngest, he's the one with the least experience. The other two, we've seen what they've been through, and we can assume that more has happened since, if that's the route they're going. And I think this is going to be kind of used as like the learning moment for Tom Holland's Spider-Man. Peter. That's my theory on this movie going forward.
What do you think, Mike?
He's gonna learn to be Spider-Man finally.
I think that whether there's going to be conflict all revolves around whether we get Bully Maguire or not.
That's right. Everybody can learn. Everybody can learn something from Bully Maguire.
I want a really weird, awkward introduction between Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker and Aunt May, where she thinks he's hot or something. Who's your hot friend or something like that? I want that.
Or like so Marissa, just to be clear, where Marissa Tomei's Aunt May thinks Tobey Maguire's attractive?
Yes.
Okay.
No.
Because Tom Holland's probably going to have to lie to her about who he is if he's there. So I'm hoping
this is my friend Phil.
Yeah. So I'm hoping she thinks he's cute or something, and then he does the dance, and then they walk out.
Bro, if you didn't think Tobey Maguire was a little more attractive after Bully Maguire, I don't know what the fuck you're doing. Now dig on this.
Oh my God.
Find us some shade, hot legs.
Anyway, I think we can safely move to what you want to move to at this point.
I want to bring up a few more things since we're in the world of the MCU Spider-Man. Can we talk about a few more things?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I want to ask some honest questions because
shoot,
I do think Tom Holland, in my opinion, is middle ground. He is not my favorite Peter. He's not my favorite Spider-Man. But he is a better Spider-Man than Tobey Maguire. I'm going to admit that. He is a better Peter Parker than Andrew Garfield. So when it comes to this series, let's just talk about a few of the obvious. To this point, I find the romantic... Wahoo.
God damn it.
To this point, I find the romantic relationship between Peter and MJ to be the weakest of the three trilogies. Or not, I'm sorry, the three series. I think Andrew Garfield and Emma Stone played off each other really well. Obviously, they dated during the second movie, so that was real. While I'm not
different character,
while I'm not a huge MJ fan in the Spider-Man trilogy, I think her and Tobey do pretty good together. But I've watched two movies in the MCU series. I don't know a thing about Mary Jane except she's edgy. I don't feel like that romantic spark is there compared to the other two.
You have to think about this, man. They're high school kids. They're both super awkward. Do you remember dating people in high school? You were super awkward. You didn't know.
He didn't date people.
I accidentally touched her finger with my finger. I got to go run to the next room and breathe hard because that was awesome.
Right.
It's probably a little unfair to try to compare that.
Yeah, you can't really, because really, Tobey Maguire and Kirsten Dunst didn't get like hot and awesome until after the first movie, when they were out of high school. And then, you literally see Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man graduate before they really do anything relationshipy. So really,
But do you agree? But do you agree that through 2 movies you would like to know a little bit more about MJ? Like, there's nothing known about her except that her personality. Like,
They really just don't focus on those character aspects in this.
but that's what I'm saying.
Story.
I would like to see that.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I guess I just didn't really ever care about knowing more about MJ in the first 3 movies. So all the stuff we got about her, I really didn't care about.
Mike, did you have something to say?
I think that with just from what we saw in the trailer, we'll probably get a lot more about MJ in the 3rd movie that's coming out.
I was gonna say too. I think this movie's gonna touch on that a lot more.
I would love to see that. I'm just saying, like, I have high expectations, obviously, as does everybody. I really do want to see more about their relationship.
Well, I think it's definitely going to happen because in the trailer, when he's walking up that walkway and all those people have those signs about him being the devil, MJ's walking right beside him holding hands. So,
and they're on the rooftop together, and
she's going to be much more prevalent as a girlfriend in this one, like trying to protect him. And
I do hope so, because Zendaya, she's an awesome actress.
yeah, she's great at everything.
They have great chemistry together too.
They do.
Even in real life, if you've seen anything with them, they're like best friends. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
It's the whole group of 3, Ned,
him too.
Tom Holland. They just like, it's so uncanny how much they just get along just like they would in the movie.
Yeah,
it's weird almost.
I wouldn't doubt at all if Ned and Tom Holland have actually put together the Lego Death Star in real life.
Oh, they probably have.
And I mean, just, we can go back more to this later, but I just feel like we're on the most recent trilogy. Fuck, I keep calling it a trilogy. I guess it is now.
It will be.
It will be a trilogy. So.
That movie's coming out.
When you're hearing this episode, that's the day it's gonna be.
That's right. I just feel like we're on the MCU train, so I want to keep talking about this trilogy.
Yeah,
and I want to hear your guys' honest opinions. Like,
okay, well, I have some things I'd like to touch on about this. One, I'll throw you a bone here. One aspect of the new trilogy that I dislike is actually the suit AI.
Yes, I was gonna bring that up.
When it was first introduced, like, that's neat, but then when I realized why it exists, and it was just because they were killing Tony, but they wanted a snarky suit to still exist in the universe. It's so awkward. Peter doesn't need those. Like, he's not somebody who needs training and practice stuff.
Right.
Like, that's one of his aspects. Is he's.
You
just
mean Iron Man
natural.
Jr.?
Iron Man Jr.
Spider-Man never had to train to fight. He just could because of his. That's like one of the natures of his powers. Is
the Peter Tingle?
He's agile.
The Peter Tingle.
He avoids things.
Listen,
He doesn't avoid things because he's like good at fighting. He just has spider-like senses and reflexes. It's just natural to him.
You guys didn't love that the glasses were called Edith, even dead, I'm the hero.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Hilarious.
That's so Tony Stark. I think what I want to talk about is, and I think this is a pretty common argument with these movies. Peter Parker is a nerdy kid. He's self-made. Let's talk about the Marvel Universe gives Peter Parker everything. Tony Stark gives Peter these suits. He gives him these resources, and it takes away the relatability. Spider-Man has always been maybe the most relatable hero because he comes from a poor neighborhood, a poor family.
He delivers pizzas in his suit.
He delivers pizzas in his spider suit. And with the Marvel movies, he is poor when he starts with his Aunt May, but Tony gives him everything. The only suit that was Peter's was that homemade suit when Tony, and I love the scene where Tony takes his suit away. I really do love that. But the relatability is gone because you have this billionaire that is giving him everything. What do you guys think about that?
Don't get me wrong, they did actually incorporate some cool aspects of how young Peter Parker would handle this special suit, like being able to, like, hacking it and getting past the security thing.
Oh yeah, and it shows his intelligence.
Yeah, because sometimes people forget Peter's like a science-minded.
He's
dude.
Actually really, really smart. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, he's a scientist in the future. Like,
he invented the webs that he uses.
The Marvel movies do a good job of showing his intelligence. I agree with that.
I actually forget, how do they handle the web aspect in this movie? Is it
He uses the chemistry lab after hours to make his own lab to make his own web fluid. Yeah, he lifts up the lockers in the hallway and puts his stuff down in the
okay.
hole in the
Like
ground.
I was
Yeah.
blanking on
Adrian, not your whole thing about like Tony Stark and Spider-Man, their like relationship and stuff. I'm not a big comic book, like I know enough about comics, but not like Doug and Corey do. But I mean, Iron Man and Spider-Man are really like close friends in the comics, so it's not like they're just pulling that out of thin air or out of
It's
their asses.
ultimately why in the storyline for Civil War, Spider-Man eventually decides, okay, I will announce my true identity on TV and I'll be on Iron Man's side. It's why he does that, because Iron Man does give him a lot in the comics, but also I think they kind of just made Tony give him everything that in the comics Shield gives Spider-Man. Because Shield does help him out a lot in the comics. He usually, at first, he actually kind of refuses to work for Shield. He just kind of wants to be his own guy. But then he realizes that he can do better things by helping all the Avengers, and he eventually does do that. And Shield does really help him out a lot. That's how he gets all the crazy suits throughout the years.
Okay.
I think they kind of just made it Tony instead.
the version of Peter that you're most intimate with, like from like the older trilogy and stuff, is not this Peter.
No, but they're mixing different. MCU is the least story-driven Spider-Man they've had yet.
Yeah, they're grabbing aspects of different ones and mixing it.
Is it not like widely regarded that Spider-Man is one of the most relatable heroes?
No, you're right there, yeah.
And it's not relatable to have a billionaire giving you suits and giving you these things.
What, you're not just handed things by your billionaire father
At some point in
figure?
high school, we all went on a science trip and got bit by a spider and got powers. But
I got bit by a spider, but it didn't give me powers.
Shit, you guys weren't supposed to know about that.
And as I said at the beginning, I'm not talking about comics because I don't know that world. But the Sam Raimi trilogy, even the Mark Webb with Andrew Garfield, it's just about a normal person like defending these people that can't help themselves. I love the relatability. And I do love Tom Holland, but I don't feel it's as relatable with Tony Stark and Marvel, or with Tony Stark and the Avengers as a resource.
I think they try to make him relatable through the lens of his like daily, like his school life and his issues with his friends and that stuff. I think he's also supposed to be relatable to a younger group than we are now. Like, we're aging millennials.
everything,
What did you say we are, Adrian? What are we? What's that word?
Fuck, I forgot the expression. Mike's put me
This
on the
word
spot. I
doesn't
forgot the
exist.
expression.
Don't listen to these people. No one has ever used this word.
It's fucking chuggies. We're chuggies.
Chuggies, that's it.
Chuggies.
everything MCU is actually more cookie cutter to appeal from kids to older people. And if you look at any of the Marvel movies that are outside the MCU, they kind of appeal more to adults.
Blade.
Well, they also followed the
Comics more.
before.
Also.
Well, not just that.
Not
A
comics.
different generation of comics. These are drawing from a newer.
Yes, but that's what I
story.
mean. I mean,
Yeah.
newer Marvel comics appeal more to kids and young
Yeah.
adults and the happy. Like, Marvel's never been the DC side of things where they're going to kill a bunch of people. And
No,
Deadpool.
DC's always been. Well, now you're just talking
okay.
about.
Okay, no. Here's the reason I actually mentioned Deadpool. Because I don't know how, if they're actually going to bring him into the MCU, it's going to be a real struggle to do the Spider-Man and Deadpool work together a lot, actually.
And he's in love with Spider-Man.
Yeah, like, there's a reason his suit sort of looks like Spider-Man, and like you get that feeling like he loves Spider-Man. And there's no way that's going to work with this like 15-year-old version of Spider-Man and Ryan Reynolds. It'd just be fucking.
I'm right. No.
The only way that they could make that work is if it would have to be in a later movie, and Peter Parker would have to be graduated from high school,
Or they would have to make Deadpool PG-13.
Ew.
I know. I was saying that with some snark.
Let There Be Carnage shouldn't have been PG-13.
while he will be in other movies that aren't his own. He'll be PG-13.
It's not going to be hard with Ryan Reynolds' ability to turn a phrase to make him PG-13 funny in an MCU movie for 10 minutes.
But
It's not going to be difficult.
doesn't do PG-13.
Yes, he does. There are so many comics where he doesn't kill a bunch of people and swear. It's possible. It's very possible.
Did you not see the Christmas special of Deadpool 2?
Yeah, that's right.
Where he still ties, what's his name? Fred Savage to a bed.
That having that is worth it just for those scenes alone.
But I will tell you, having an entire 2-hour Deadpool movie PG-13, no, I don't want that.
No,
ever,
I wasn't
ever,
a huge
ever.
fan of that. No.
But if
I
they
didn't
put him
watch it.
for 10 minutes in a movie, 5 minutes in a movie to help out real quick, kind of like Quicksilver was in the newer X-Men movies where he was just kind of in the movie real quick, and then they found a reason that they were going on without him.
And that needs to be in every X-Men movie ever made for the rest of history. But
Yes, he does. You're right.
that's called perfection right there.
That slow motion is some of the best in ever.
Sorry,
in a movie.
DC. They beat you to it.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
I know, Mike. I know.
Bite my tongue.
I just want the general listening audience to understand I'm asking these questions because I think I'm probably the biggest skeptic of the group, and not just the skeptic of Marvel or whatever. I just, like I talked about earlier, I went to go see Ghostbusters and I was looking for a reason to hate that movie, and I genuinely enjoyed it. But that's
biggest
why
skeptic out of this group might be a little
Well,
much
okay.
to call yourself, but here for this, yeah.
when it comes to this genre, like when it comes to movies,
I'm just.
I'm
messing
always
around,
looking
but
for a
I get what
reason
you're
to
saying.
hate.
Well, especially comic book movies, because
With
you've
his
not been
in
secretive.
his old bitter age, he loves to hate.
I love to hate.
Adrian has not been secretive that he's kind of grown tired of the comic book genre of movies. So
Of any of the four of us, I have the Marvel fatigue. I have the superhero fatigue.
Not only do I want another 23, but I want another 23 after that as well.
I will watch these movies till the day I die.
Yes, if I need help, get it. Like if you got to carry me to the theater on my, if I'm dying, I want my deathbed to be set up in the theater.
And then what?
See the last movie.
I would like a good 23 of the DC universe because
No.
we deserve it.
Yeah, there you go, Mike.
I would love a good 23 of the
Oh yeah,
DC
yeah, yeah.
universe,
But I don't believe it will ever.
I don't
happen.
think it'll happen.
No, because Warner Brothers doesn't know how to. Warner Brothers doesn't know how to do that. They get too involved and they axe everything.
Let's not even go there.
My last thing about the MCU Spider-Mans.
Yeah.
Do you give any credence to this is obviously a shared universe, whereas the Raimi trilogy, the Amazing Spider-Man is are standalone movies. Just to me, sometimes Spider-Man gets bogged down in, like we joked about earlier, trying to be Iron Man Jr., or all these villains just being propped up for a bigger MCU universe. I kind of wish we had just standalone Spider-Man movies, whereas even No Way Home coming up, it's going to be a bigger Doctor Strange. Like, I kind of wish we had a standalone Tom Holland Spider-Man.
I kind of wanted to. I'm glad you brought this up. I wanted to touch on it because I was actually going to say the Mysterio and Vulture are actually two of the stronger appearances of villains, in my opinion.
Agreed.
Spider-Man villains, in my
Absolutely.
Oh,
opinion.
for sure.
But they both have Avengers or Tony Stark motivations.
I don't think that Tony Stark motivation hurt Mysterio in any way, honestly.
But it didn't feel like a Spider-Man, like, I don't know. To me, it didn't feel like a Spider-Man versus Mysterio. It felt like he was created because of Tony
Because this
Stark.
Spider-Man doesn't have an arch nemesis. He has one arch nemesis. Well, he doesn't need an arch nemesis. He has one guy he put in jail, but he actually has his respect. He hasn't built this rapport yet. They don't even care about him yet. He's just some kid.
But everything is like centralized around Tony Stark or like the Avengers. I get what you're saying, but I just kind of wish Spider-Man had his own battle to fight. Like,
But I mean, you need to think about the fact that they brought this MCU Spider-Man into a well-established Avengers world.
And they even introduced him through the lens of a different character.
and
So
there's going to be villains that have much bigger problems than Spider-Man,
yeah.
and
especially currently, like other MCU characters are just a bigger deal and a more threat to these villains.
Right. They did bring him in like 20-something movies into the...
Yeah, he kind of came in late.
Yeah, well, yeah. Perfect example of that is when Mysterio says, "There's no Avengers here, so we're good to go."
Right.
yeah, see, he doesn't even really see Spider-Man as a threat because I don't know. I just think that if they had done Spider-Man earlier in the MCU, he might have more villains that are after him specifically.
I think you'll like this movie for that reason.
New York is literally the hub of everything the Avengers have done.
I almost said ground. Fuck it. It's been long enough. It's ground zero of like all the events in the MCU.
For the humans inside the MCU, that attack on New York was like 9/11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thousands of people died, obviously, you know. I mean, you would probably see the Avengers as way bigger threats than some kid in a suit
Yeah.
that swings around.
If they had brought Spider-Man into the Marvel Cinematic Universe earlier on, I feel like they wouldn't have been able to bring him in as a 15-year-old kid. He would have had to been a little bit more mature because he would have been helping like set up the Avengers.
It would have been like the PS4 game. Like he would have been an older mid-20s.
Like think about how much Tony and Cap aged throughout the movies that we saw. Like was Tom Holland's Peter Parker even fucking like 4 years old when the first Iron Man would have occurred?
Oh, when the first Iron Man happened.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like at that point, there was the idea of Spider-Man. Well, I'm not talking like literally was Tom Holland young. I'm talking about in universe.
In universe,
This
Spider-Man
Peter
even
Parker would have been like a fucking elementary school kid.
He would have been, right,
when they were fucking fighting in the first Avengers. Like he was he grew up hearing stories of these people, like watching these like guys save the world.
Absolutely.
So that's like that really changes some like things. Which might also be why there just isn't the need for Uncle Ben like there was in the other movies, because he's grown up watching these heroes save his town, his world, like, and do like these heroic deeds that didn't exist in those other films, so they needed some reason to give him like that heroic motivation.
To answer the age question, during Iron Man 2, they're saying that Peter Parker would have been 10 years old, or no, 9 years old
during Iron Man 2.
Which means I would be like exactly right to say he was an elementary school kid, or you're possibly younger in the first. Yeah, it makes perfect sense. That just lines up.
Yeah. No, so I mean, I don't know if we're going to address this later, so I just want to say there's plenty of moments.
We've kind of already transitioned into it was a pretty clean step.
I just want to say, in the defense of the movies, I do really enjoy them. There's plenty of moments that I love from the two MCU Spider-Man movies. Like when one of my favorite moments in any Spider-Man movie is when he closes his eyes and uses his spider sense to get to Mysterio. Like that moment, that moment gives me goosebumps. And I do think Tom Holland is, whether or not he's my favorite, he is the most well-rounded Peter Parker and Spider-Man in all the universes. So, I mean, I don't want to sound like I'm completely hating on them. I do love those movies. I just wanted to ask the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's good to ask, especially like you even framed it as like, I'm not a comic guy, so let me ask you right here, right now, to fill in the blanks. No, that's totally the right way to go about that.
I don't necessarily think that like Tom Holland's Spider-Man in his own movies is like the best Spider-Man. He's a great Spider-Man, like, but I think like him in Civil War, that brief moment of him, like, when he was like webbing up Falcon and Winter Soldier, like,
you have a metal arm. That's awesome.
His quips and everything in that movie were perfect Spider-Man.
Well, think about the scene when he fights the Avengers robbing the bank. That was
perfect Spider-Man. Yes,
that's solidified.
To me, that's a perfect mix of Peter and Spider-Man.
Sweet, the Avengers.
Aren't you guys good guys?
It shows like his Peter side where he's like awkwardly leaning. He doesn't know how to lean on the wall. He's like,
he doesn't know what to do with his hand.
In the comics and the old cartoons, Spider-Man literally is the PG-13 Deadpool. He's quippy, funny. He makes everything a joke. He's having fun with everything he does.
And to sound like I'm not biased, Tobey Maguire does not quip.
No, not at all.
No, well,
he never stops being Peter Parker.
He doesn't stop being Peter Parker. He has his occasional like, here's your change.
I don't know. No, when he was fighting Bonesaw, he had a Spider-Man moment.
We'll talk about that when we get to that trilogy. I just don't want to sound biased, even though I am a Sam Raimi fanboy.
Like, I'm gonna be real. I feel like Tom Holland nailed both aspects. Like,
Oh, I fully
as
agree with
well
you.
as the other two did. They're each separate one. Like
I
that's the
I
thing.
happen to think Tom Holland's perfect.
Yeah, that's my thing. I think he just absolutely like his awkward Peter Parker-ness, and then his like accidental, like not even like cockiness, his accidental cockiness that comes out at
Accidental
is
arrogance.
exactly on brand for what we want to see from Spider-Man and Peter Parker, respectively. He just hit them both perfectly, where the other two both did one really well, but fell short in the other aspect. I feel like Tom Holland does them both just exceptionally well.
But now that we are through the MCU Spider-Man, or Iron Man Jr., let's move on to a series that...
That's Iron Lad.
Little Goblin Jr.?
Little Goblin Jr. gonna cry? Let's move on to a series to me that doesn't hold much weight at all in the series, which probably involves the best actor of the three to play Spider-Man.
It's funny that you mentioned not being able to hold weight. Get it. We'll get there.
He holds weight. The story of this 2-movie series does not hold weight. That's why it didn't get a third. But as far as the Amazing Spider-Man movies go with Mark Webb, I just have so many issues with this movie. I honestly don't know where to begin.
Well, let's start one at a time, because I'm going to argue with you.
Let's go with one of the biggest arguments or the biggest debates about this movie. Both of these movies, there is way too much focus on his parents. I feel like they're just like over romanticized. And especially in the first movie, it's too much to care about. Like you have Peter Parker, you have Aunt May, you have Uncle Ben, and then you have his mom and his dad. And I don't know, in my opinion, not a comic person, it was just too many cooks in the kitchen. I could care less about his mom and his dad. And it got even worse in The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which we'll talk about. The entire opening scene of The Amazing Spider-Man 2, that literally took like 10 minutes, to the point where you forgot you were watching a Spider-Man movie. It felt like a fucking James Bond movie until you saw that logo of Spider-Man. You're like, oh yeah, this is a Spider-Man movie. I did not care for the parent angle at all. If you take the parent scenes out of the first and second movie, it doesn't change anything.
I'll be real with you. Those are just kind of like not impactful one way or the other enough to me that I just blanked them out of my head as part of the movie.
But they are a big part of both movies.
Yeah, you're right. It's like when I think about them, it just doesn't even like come to mind. So kind of, I guess you're actually right about them just not changing anything by not being there, because they're just not even an aspect I consider.
I never really cared about the parents and everything, like what they were, where they came from. I really never cared about that.
Yeah.
I don't think it detracted for me though.
No, I know it didn't do anything for me. It's completely null.
The neutrals in Futurama would say, I have no strong opinion one way or the other. But Corey, if you want to finish that thought.
I didn't like that they made in the first Amazing Spider-Man. I love the movie. I love Andrew Garfield. I love his Spider-Man. Didn't care much for his Peter Parker. He's a little too cool for his school,
I agree with that.
as us old people say. But I didn't like that they did this whole, like, his dad had this secret underground thing with a token in the subway.
Yes, what the hell was that about?
The fucking tokens. The tokens.
Is there something in the comics where his parents were actually like spies? Because that drives me nuts.
If I'm missing something, no, I don't think that was
I haven't read every Spider-Man comic line, so I'm not familiar with that.
Amazing Spider-Man 2. He throws a fucking calculator into a wall because he's angry, and these gold fucking doubloons come out. And these gold doubloons, guess what they do? They open a fucking underground train in the subway of New York City that leads to his dad telling him, I created the super spiders, which we already fucking knew from the first movie.
It's a comic movie. Things like that are okay.
It's terrible.
They fly by just smoothly for me, no matter how ridiculous.
It's kind of like a ripoff of Batman, though. Like, oh, hey, here's the secret lair.
Are you saying Batman is the only hero with a secret lair, Mike?
I'm just saying, like, to have that kind of money and to be able to be like, oh, here's the secret lair under this place that nobody knows somehow.
But Peter Parker does have a secret lair.
But Doug, did it seriously not take you out of the moment when there is Electro, there's Goblin Jr., there's Gwen Stacy maybe going to Oxford, and then there's Peter Parker that throws a calculator against a wall and finds these gold coins that lead to an underground train?
I'm gonna be real with you. When I'm watching like a comic movie, like when I'm watching any movie in general, like I just my sense of like what happens in real life is suspended. I just roll with what's thrown at me. It has to be quite obnoxious to really take me out of it.
The same way with Spider-Man 3, I'll admit, with the Sam Raimi trilogy. What are your thoughts on Amazing Spider-Man 2 with just too many cooks in the kitchen? There's just too many plot lines.
That's kind of a Spider-Man thing. Like one of the aspects of like his stories have always been the juggle, all the different things he has to constantly juggle. Like when he works with Dr. Octavius and tries to maintain a relationship with MJ, but he also has to help with Aunt May, but he also has to be at work, and then he has to go to his other job and he has to get photos of this. And like that's just something that he's always had to do, is try to maintain all these different aspects of his life on top of being Spider-Man and constantly falling short on some of them. Like if you think about it, something always gets less focus than something else. And yeah, you'll get to go when I'm finished.
keep going, but Mike, yeah.
Like I wasn't taken out of the moment. Like I was invested in all of them. I liked Electro. I was really invested in the Gwen Stacy thing for.
Don't you know I'm Electro? Like, go the fuck to Batman and Robin. Go the fuck to Batman and Robin with your puns. You should be there with Arnold Schwarzenegger's Mr. Freeze. Chill out.
I'm gonna just sidestep that because, but yeah, I don't know. For me, it just like I just roll with it. Like to me, it's just this is what's happened in the movie, and that's what I'm there for. But what do you want to say, Mike?
That moment's past now.
I want to reach through the screen and slap you in the face.
I'm saying moment's past now. You guys moved on to a different topic.
That was one thought.
Anyway, Mike, say what you're.
I was just going to simply ask Adrian, like, have you not played the PS4 Spider-Man game? Like, there's so much shit going on all at the same time. Like, he's not just going after one person. So
it's still relevant. It's what I was just saying.
To me, that's a completely different experience. Like,
I think the Amazing Spider-Man 2 did a lot better job than Spider-Man 3 with Tobey Maguire did, with having all of that stuff going on at the same time.
If you guys are cool with it, I'd like to save talking for that movie for the very last, because I have so much I want to say about Spider-Man 3.
The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is the worst movie out of this entire franchise.
You cannot believe that.
It has the best. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 has the best visual effects. I would say, even compared to the Marvel movies, it looks beautiful. Like that scene where he's jumping back and the cop car's rolling over, and he like grabs his wrist to like split the webs.
His suit is better in that movie than in the...
And it also might be the best suit in the entire franchise.
I think it... Well, actually, I have a soft spot for the original, but...
Yeah, but can we talk about how bad the suit is in the first movie?
But I'm not going to let you just sidestep. I'm not going to let you just sidestep actually suggesting that you think this movie is worse than Spider-Man 3.
It's worse. Amazing Spider-Man 2 is worse than Spider-Man 3.
How?
If you take out Venom from...
I have to like seethe with rage for a little bit first.
Okay, we'll talk about it later.
Corey, you've been quiet for a while. Want to jump into the ring here?
Everybody's starting to get a little obnoxious. I'm trying to figure out where to jump in.
This is going to be a heated...
I have so many reasons why The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is the worst.
Every sip Adrian takes, he's going to get more and more obnoxious. We need to continue. You've gone from normal talking to quoting these movies over us talking, so we got to get moving.
The Amazing Spider-Man 2, the Amazing Spider-Man series, the worst villains of all of these movies. The lizard looks like a fucking Goomba from Super Mario Brothers.
I will give you that the visuals of fucking
Rise of Fonz.
In Dr.
Dr.
Connors.
Connors, yeah. I could not for the life of me
I thought you
remember
were
his name.
looking for the actor's name. Sorry.
The Harry Osborn / the New Goblin is fucking awful.
Dane DeHaan did not bad.
Dane DeHaan is an amazing actor.
Dane
though.
DeHaan is a great actor. You're a fraud, Spider-Man.
When you strike gold with Willem Dafoe, there is no other human being that's doing that role ever again.
Not even fair. It's not even fair to try to compare.
I would take fucking James Franco's new Goblin over Dane DeHaan's fucking Goblin.
I think you are giving some things from the original too much.
Or
credit.
other than, okay, let's talk about Rhino. Fucking Rhino is a fucking cartoon character.
I have more to say about Dane DeHaan.
Yeah.
Okay,
let's
good,
stick to
good.
this for now.
And do you remember how Dane DeHaan overpowered 2 fucking fully armed guards? Which I didn't buy ever. Like in Amazing Spider-Man 2, this fucking dude, this scrawny motherfucker, overpowers 2 guards with guns. The look of him, the portrayal. Dane DeHaan's a good actor, but the new Goblin is fucking laughable.
Dane DeHaan not only was a horrible Goblin, I didn't like him at all. He was the only thing of the Amazing Spider-Man movies I didn't like. He was also a really, really, really bad Harry Osborn.
So bad.
I will give you that, yeah.
He's not fun to watch. Like, if you've ever seen the movie with Dane DeHaan, Chronicle,
I love that movie.
it's like a found footage movie where he gets superpowers.
He's my favorite part of it.
He ends up being like kind of getting corrupted by it, but it's amazing. But if you would have brought a little more
That
of that,
sounds like it would have prepared him greatly for a character that
exactly
gets corrupted.
when they announced that he was going to be Goblin, I was super excited because Chronicle was amazing. He was great in it,
Yes.
and then he didn't bring any of that. He went a little too comic. I love when comic book movies are accurate. I don't like when the characters are over the top like they are on the page. And he was way too over the top.
How cringy was that fucking line? You're a fraud, Spider-Man. and the fucking the Osborn curse. The Osborn curse, which not my words, their words in the movie. It's never explained what the Osborn curse is.
Ozzy Osbourne curse.
Yeah, exactly. They're just dying, and he needs Spider-Man's blood because, according to Harry Osborn, Spider-Man is self-healing. He regenerates, even though he's never seen that. He said he has every other ability of a spider, even self-healing. Like, you've never seen him regenerate or self-heal. How do you know that he has that ability? He just assumes that getting Spider-Man's blood is gonna heal the Osborn curse.
There is one thing to say about that character. He's a fucking psychopath. So who fucking knows what he's thinking? But that definitely wasn't the reason they were going that route. But I was just trying to give it an excuse for
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Well, there's a chance that he had access to all of the files of what those spiders had in them, and he knows Spider-Man was bit by one of those spiders. He might know that the healing ability was in those spiders.
Yeah, he definitely had access because the research was done in there.
Well, that's what I'm saying is he might have known he can heal because of that research.
That's true. He might have just known.
In the first Amazing Spider-Man movie, when Peter Parker enters Oscorp, he acts like he has no idea what this building is or what this company represents, but he was apparently best childhood friends with Harry Osborn.
They didn't handle that friendship very well.
They didn't.
The Amazing Spider-Man.
No.
That's something that the original trilogy really did do well, and how it actually was. They were like, that was his like best friend. So I guess actually Peter has always had connections with an extremely rich and powerful.
Yes, I'm somewhat of a scientist myself.
Now we're getting down to it. So you were wrong. No, but
yeah, but Norman was kicked out. So
yeah.
Right.
Out am I?
Just to keep going, Uncle Ben's death in these movies is fucking so stupid. Like, the guy drops his gun and fucking Martin Sheen's just like, ah, he yells and like lunges for the gun for no reason. Like, this guy might have just picked up his gun and kept running, but like Martin Sheen like lunges at the gun like he's waiting to be killed.
I love Martin Sheen from years ago. I think he kind of hit that point where he probably could have retired, but just kept being in movies.
Right.
And that's just unfortunately one of them.
He's not a terrible Uncle Ben, but the death scene to me is just so fucking stupid.
Yeah, it wasn't very well. Very.
It
good.
makes more
Yeah.
sense in the Raimi trilogy. Like you had time to make a better death scene. How is that what they came up with? Like fucking Peter Parker is shorted 2 cents in the take a penny, leave a penny for chocolate milk. And the guy fucking robs the cash register, drops his gun, and fucking Uncle Ben lunges at the fucking gun. Why do you do that? Step out of the way. The guy probably picks up his gun and keeps running. I don't get it.
He was trying to quote unquote do the right thing or something.
I think it's part of that great power comes great responsibility thing where he was trying to.
That's what's at stake here.
But it's part of what motivates Spider-Man to be who he is his uncle was trying to do the right thing. So if his uncle had just let him pick the gun up and run, I don't think Spider-Man would have had quite the motivation he had.
You mean when Peter Parker turns into a fucking revenge-raved lunatic who's actually a fucking bad guy in The Amazing Spider-Man until that scene on the bridge?
Well, I think Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man does the same thing when he hears that there was gunshots and he hears
He hunted that guy down. But he didn't kill that guy. The guy killed himself. Whereas Andrew Garfield clearly said to the guy, "Ooh, this could have gotten a lot worse." Like Andrew Garfield is telling this man, like, "I would have fucked you up if you were the guy."
At least he was honest.
He is honest, but he's not a hero. Like, I understand the development.
He wasn't a hero yet.
I understand that. He starts on revenge and he becomes a hero on the bridge scene, which I do love the bridge scene, actually.
He's given power to confront the murderer.
He is legitimately fucking terrifying. Like, he's a bad person when he gets these powers.
Well, actually, this is a perfect time to bring up about Aunt May, because you mentioned her earlier, and I wanted
definitely better than Marissa Tomei's.
I actually think this was probably the best one, but it's for small scene. Like, do you recall the scene when he came back all beat up with the eggs, and she just
finally has the eggs?
She's like, just don't ask. Like, you can't. Like, basically, you can't ask, and they just kind of like sit in there. I like that's one of the aspects of the movie that I think.
My favorite
nailed.
My favorite Peter Aunt May is when she's talking about like how he's obsessed with his parents, but she's like, "I've been the one raising you. Like, as far as I'm concerned, you're my boy."
I think they handle the relationship in that movie incredibly well, and like
I agree.
Like that scene at the end, it's just so impacted, and that shows like the life he leads and why he might be like when he's first given, like after his uncle's killed and he's first given gains this stuff, why he isn't exactly like a good dude. Like, he can finally like right the fucking things he's seen as wrongs in his life.
Yeah, and even though Andrew Garfield is, I mean, if we're talking about it, Andrew Garfield is probably my favorite Spider-Man. I understand where he's coming from with that revenge arc, but man, like I don't know, he's such a dick to me. Like, when he first becomes Spider-Man, like he's I don't know, like I love his line delivery, but he is a fucking bad person.
That was part of Spider-Man's arc, was he was always kind of a dick with his quips.
That's like the ultimate Spider-Man, isn't it?
It's many versions of Spider-Man was a dickhead.
Wasn't Peter Parker, like, in some of the comics, just a nerd that gained powers and, like...
Yeah, they get varied.
To keep up with today's world, we had to change what a nerd is.
I understand if Andrew Garfield, like, was playing more on the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, like...
Well, just, like, the concept of, like, a nerd in regards to Peter Parker has changed. Like, the nerds aren't always, like, those, like, geeky, like, shy guys that are awkward and
Andrew
smart.
Garfield giving those fucking male model looks.
Some of them are just, like, dudes that are good at science, but aren't also like shy and let people fuck with them.
But The Amazing Spider-Man gave us one of the best scenes in any of these movies, which was when he was first getting his powers. He's accidentally beating those guys up on the subway. Then he gets home and he's taking everything out of the fridge.
Oh, I love that
and stuff. And he's like, and then he goes to drop the one Tupperware and he catches it. Oh, I got it. He's just backing up the steps with all that food, and then she says, "Was that frozen mac and cheese?" And he goes, "Yep." And then the hardest I think I've ever laughed in any of these movies in the theater was when his alarm goes off and he just destroys it.
That is a great scene. I love when he's taking the food out of the fridge and he says this meatloaf beats all other meatloafs.
Yes.
It's like he was high.
Yeah,
Like she probably thought he was on
that's what
drugs
they
or
were
something.
thinking,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was great. It was a good scene.
Something is terribly wrong.
He is now Spider Taste. It actually, I feel like that movie was actually I think that was the influence for the Miles Morales animation one when he first starts sticking to things and it's just like this clusterfuck of like the hair and stuff. I think they got that from that route that the Amazing Spider-Man took. Mike, you have been quiet for too long.
Yeah, Mike, give us some of your
Immediately,
thoughts.
right now, tell me something about the original trilogy or Amazing Spider-Man.
The Amazing Spider-Man movies. Tell us your thoughts.
Quick, go. Tell me now, quick.
I don't have like a huge opinion on the Andrew Garfield ones because I've literally only watched them once each. Just because to me they were good, but to me they weren't great. So like they didn't warrant a rewatch.
I can't even count the number of times I've seen the Andrew Garfield Spider-Man movies.
So I will say I did. I thoroughly enjoyed the first one. The scene you guys were talking about when after he gets his powers in the kitchen and stuff, and just all the shit going on there. I actually don't hate that they chose Lizard as the villain. I do agree that the graphics and whatnot were.
Well, Kurt Connors should have been in the movies.
Important characters in Spider-Man story, because he's a good guy that's also a bad guy against his will.
Yeah, I like the choice.
Aside from his Uncle Ben, Dr. Connors is one of the more influential people in Peter's life. So,
but Dr. Connors was in their Sam Raimi 2 and 3.
He
just
was.
wasn't Lizard yet.
And there's so many deleted scenes from the Amazing Spider-Man that was supposed to form a tighter connection between Peter and Dr. Connors that they just fucking got rid of for no reason.
I've never even had the chance to see any of the deleted scenes, so I didn't even know that.
If you watch those...
I hate that. I hate when movies cut out that kind of stuff.
If you watch those, it forms such a tighter connection. And not only like the connection between the two, but it humanizes Dr. Connors to another level that it just makes you feel more sympathetic for the character. And I fucking hate when like you said, I hate when movies do that because Dr. Connors could have been such a better character in this movie and they fucking ruined it.
Well, Dr. Connors, like Peter Parker was like his lab rat. He always was there with Brock and Gwen Stacy helping out and learning things. And Kurt Connors even had like a wife and a kid. And there was a much deeper story to Kurt Connors that they just didn't explore.
Yeah, and he would Peter would like bring him like samples of like his DNA and stuff to run tests on. Like Doc Connors is like one of the few people who actually knew who he was because he had to basically. And I love Doc Connors. Like he's a great character. Like if you think back to the cartoon from the 90s that we all grew up on, like he was in so many of the episodes. And always
yes, he was.
When he wasn't like, hulking out into Lizard Man, he was totally a good guy. But he accidentally fucked himself up.
It was essentially a Dr. Jekyll and Hyde thing.
Yeah, it is.
Actually, yeah.
And they do a great job of showing that at the end of The Amazing Spider-Man, like after Peter puts the fucking cure and it spreads across the city, like Dr. Connors chooses to let go of his lizard arm that's deteriorating and he uses his human arm to save Peter. And that's a really good moment, I think.
It probably would have been more impactful, though, as you said, had the rest of the scenes been around.
Had they been in the movie.
So I can't argue that, though. It was, as you said, it was still a good scene regardless.
It definitely still showed his human side and that he was still a good person.
I think the first Amazing Spider-Man was fine. Like, I don't think it hit any of the lows from other movies, but I don't think it, like, hit the peaks. It was just kind of like it's a fine movie to put on in the background. I don't know. To me, it was nothing special. The Amazing Spider-Man 2, so bad.
Kind of random. Did you like the just random skateboarding scene after he...
No.
I don't know why, but I got kind of a kick out of it.
I fucking hated that.
I don't know. It was just something so simple, but it was like neat. I don't know why. I just thought it was like, that's neat.
I just never
wouldn't have thought of that.
I never thought of fucking Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker is an outcast. Like even the scene where Flash is bullying a kid, he's not even bullying fucking Andrew Garfield. He has this other kid upside down, like making him eat food. And Andrew Garfield's like, put him down, Eugene. Like Andrew Garfield, he just shoots these male model fucking looks throughout the movie. He's like, he's not a loser. He's not. I don't know. He just I don't buy him as Peter Parker, but he's a great Spider-Man.
Speaking of Flash, I will say one of the things I know we're done talking about it, but it just made me think of it.
Yeah.
Is that the MCU's Flash to me is complete hot garbage.
Oh,
I love him.
Oh yeah, no, I love that.
the updated version of Flash.
He's not a bull. I mean, okay, he's a bully,
Oh,
but
he's
he's
a
not like
horrible bully.
But he's not
Dude,
like
You got to change what a bully is in this world. They're not all big brooding muscle men now.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe see this is why I'm an aging millennial. It just doesn't make
And
sense.
when I was
to me.
not in my grade, there was even a dude like this that was like who just fucking would say this kind of shit to everybody.
You're gonna tell me that this guy is, a nerd just like Peter on all the same shit, and yet he's sitting there bullying Peter. You're gonna tell me that nobody else bullies Flash then? Because let's be real.
Who's bullying the rich kid that throws all the parties and has all the best stuff?
Flash is in the same fucking mathletes group as Peter.
But Mike, you don't realize what you don't realize is like that old concept of like the big strong bully just doesn't exist anymore.
I'd be afraid to fight me too.
People don't kick the shit out of each other in school anymore. Like it's just not like it's mental. It's all mental game now. Like that's how it is.
One of the best parts of the new MCU Spider-Man movies is after the first time they run into Mysterio in Rome, I think it is. Flash is watching the TV and he's like, oh, he's so amazing. I love Spider-Man. I can't believe he's so great. And Peter Parker walks in and he goes, what's up, dipshit?
Yeah.
I mean, that is pretty funny.
And just to transition naturally to this series, that's actually something I like here is, well, first of all, I love the scene where Peter's uncle dies and Flash approaches him and like Peter puts him up against the locker. And I do love how Flash is like your uncle died. I'm sorry. I do love that moment. But I also love when Flash is wearing the Spider-Man shirt and Peter's like, cool shirt. And he's like, yeah, the dude's awesome. Yeah, I do love that moment. There are great moments to both movies of The Amazing Spider-Man.
You want to try that again?
There are great moments to both of the Amazing Spider-Man movies, but there's just much more that I have issues with. I'm not gonna like sit here and do the laundry list.
Give me your biggest two.
Terrible Peter Parker. Okay, terrible Peter Parker. I understand there's an Ultimate Spider-Man. I've done research. I know there's an Ultimate Spider-Man comic where Peter's kind of a dick and he's kind of snarky. But to me, it's just not my Peter Parker. I hate Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker. He looks like a fucking male model. The looks he gives, like he looks like a fucking male model.
Here comes the smolder.
It's my least favorite villains in the entire franchise. Fucking between Electro, between Rhino, who's a fucking joke. I hate the villains. Lizard is okay, but like I said, he looks like a fucking Goomba. Uncle Ben's death makes no sense. The suit in the first movie is fucking terrible. It looks like a goddamn basketball. I will say the suit in the second Amazing Spider-Man is maybe my favorite suit of all the movies. Yeah, they took the feedback very well. The second movie has a great suit. The first movie, fucking awful. A lot of the scenes are over-edited, like we talked about. That scene on the train, when the water drips on his head and he's beating up all those guys. There's like fucking multiple... Like, there's just multiple flash. And there's parts where he's swinging, where it's like 3 different camera angles, just fucking over-edited to shit. The basketball scene, laughably bad, when he's like taking on Flash one-on-one, and he's like sideways fucking dunking on the hoop, and the fucking backboard breaks. When the lizard looks at his camera and looks at the back and it says property of Peter Parker. Like, what the fuck? I thought this kid was supposed to be smart. He's showing his fucking name on his camera.
Yeah, that definitely wouldn't have happened.
He lets people die while he's telling jokes in the second Amazing Spider-Man. He's in the window, like, talking to Rhino. He's like, hey, call me Spidey, call me Webhead, just don't call me late for dinner, get it? And, like, Instead of stopping Rhino, he's fucking letting Rhino crash into police cars and letting them explode while people die instead of just stopping this fucking menace. Like, I don't know. I have so many issues with these movies.
Plus, at the very end of the second movie, when he's spinning that manhole cover around, knocking those missiles out of the way,
Right.
where are those going? Where did they
Collateral
land?
damage.
This
Collateral
is the
damage.
suspension of disbelief you have to just put up and just accept that they're just simply not on screen anymore.
Those are just some of my issues.
There's one moment that I loved in theaters specifically. It's not quite as hard hitting at home, but Adrian and I went and saw it in theaters, and the moment when he knocks Electro into the sign in Times Square, and when the beat drops, when he releases that sound, that wave of electricity.
It's like dubstep.
It's dubstep, and when it drops, it was fucking beautiful in theaters. And he just kind of floats out. I don't know. I liked it.
The Amazing Spider-Man 2, great fucking visuals. Sound design is fucking amazing. There are scenes to like in both of the movies.
My favorite scene in any live-action Spider-Man movie, in fact.
What is it? The bridge scene?
The fall.
Oh, Gwen Stacy.
Yeah, like it's just too
Oh, yeah, it's so fucking emotional.
perfect.
I honestly got goosebumps for the bridge scene when he takes his mask off and shows the kid, like, I'm just a normal guy.
Yeah.
I love that moment, and that's, like, honestly when he becomes Spider-Man. I do love that. Like, all three of these series, you know, I'm gonna be the fucking critic because I'm a skeptic and I hate life. But that got deep. But I do love all three of these series. I really do.
Spider-Man brings out the truth, I guess.
That's right. I just want to bring up points that I think are worth addressing. How does everybody feel about Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker?
Yeah, I don't like his Peter Parker. That's the only part I didn't like about
You're
this
trash,
movie.
Parker.
You're trash, Brock.
And I'm not gonna blame Andrew Garfield for that.
No.
That's
No,
absolutely
not at all.
But I like I said, like it's like the example I gave before, like when he comes back with the eggs. There are times where I like it, but overall it is his weaker aspect. He's at his best when he's just being Spider-Man on screen.
Oh yeah. He's a great Spider-Man.
I think the whole point of his Peter Parker was he was trying to act cool because he felt so much like an outcast. Like he was riding a skateboard because he thought that was what was cool, and like, you can kind of see it in that scene when he's all beat up and he forgot the eggs. He goes from kind of moping in the kitchen to when Aunt May walks in, and then he gets a pep in his step, like he's cool again. Oh, forgot the eggs. I'll go back out and get them. Like,
and when he comes back and just like defeated, basically.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay, so Peter Parker. We got past that. Talk about the villains. How does everybody feel about the Lizard, Electro, Goblin compared to the old Goblin of Willem Dafoe and Doc Ock, or MCU villains? How does everybody feel about these villains?
Sometimes you just strike lightning, and Willem Dafoe as Goblin was one of those times. But I liked Electro. I know you didn't.
I love
enjoyed it a lot,
Electro.
and I'm super stoked to see him coming back.
Me too.
Out of all three series, where would you rank the Amazing Spider-Man villains?
It's not fair because Doc Ock is hands down my absolute favorite Spider-Man
As he
villain.
should be.
Who's your favorite Goblin?
Oh,
I mean,
come on.
really?
Obviously, James Franco.
Let's go.
That's not
Yeah,
even
obviously
fair.
James Franco and
Obviously James Franco.
Yeah.
That's not even fair. You can't compare anyone to.
You're a
Franco.
hack.
Spider-Man 2, Doc Ock. It's like not even fair to ask me about villains compared to that.
So would you say the Amazing Spider-Man are your least favorite villains?
Well, no, because Spider-Man 3 exists.
Your collective group of villains?
Oh, that's true.
Well, Venom would be one of my all-time favorites. What they did to him is the worst thing I've ever seen.
So you're going to take away Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin, Doc Ock, Alfred Molina's Doc Ock, because of Venom?
There is a level of bad that Topher Grace...
Compared to Paul Giamatti's Rhino and Dane DeHaan's Goblin?
I would. Yep.
No, I'm not going to take them away. I'm gonna.
I'm
mix
talking
and
about
match here.
collectively.
Collectively,
Who's the worst? And we're talking about Vulture And Vulture and Mysterio, that's not even, you can't even touch
Keaton
those.
killed it as Vault.
Yeah, you can't even touch those.
The new villains are great.
So who is the worst collective unit of
Amazing
villains?
Spider-Man collectively, because I cannot fault 1 and 2 for the fucking abortion that is number 3.
Fucking Topher Grace had to ruin everything.
Goddamn Topher Grace.
Yeah, it was hard to watch that 70s show for a while.
Right.
Amazing Spider-Man is 100% the weakest collective of villains, because really, if you think about Willem Dafoe's Goblin, Alfred Molina's Doc Ock,
Amazing.
and then you take Michael Keaton as Vulture, and
Unbelievable.
and then you take Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio.
Fantastic.
Like,
It's
not even
impossible
fair.
to beat those 4.
It's not even fair.
Jake Gyllenhaal is incredible as an
Yes,
incredible actor.
absolutely.
Keaton, sorry, Mike.
No, you're good. I just honestly, I would have to say, I would agree that the Amazing Spider-Man movies has the weakest of the villains, and it's not even because they're not bad. It's just that the other movies,
In comparison.
Well, 1 is actually bad. It can sound just objectively bad.
Rhino?
The Goblin in the Amazing Spider-Man is bad. Rhino's like a side character, basically. I don't even.
Rhino is a villain. He's bad.
He's like a side quest villain.
But Mike,
if it weren't for the fact that Doc Ock was portrayed so damn well in the second Sam Raimi movie, Mysterio would be my second favorite out of all of them. But
who's your favorite?
my favorite's the Willem Dafoe
Oh, come
Goblin.
on, you guys,
for sure.
You guys knew who he was talking about.
I was going to say, we'll get to that.
He loves Willem Dafoe. There's no way he wasn't going to pick Goblin. But that's exactly why the MCU villains are the best ones, even though Alfred Molina and Willem Dafoe are probably, I don't know. I can't really put these 4 guys in. I have a list, but it's very
it's
hard to do.
It's so
At
fucking
the
hard
point
to
in
rank
time,
them.
like no superhero movie had a villain.
But
that
please
cast
think
that
about
well.
it this way. The Sam Raimi trilogy has very bad villains. Amazing Spider-Man has bad villains. The MCU has not put one in a Spider-Man movie yet. They're all good.
What about Shocker?
He's still good.
He's not good.
Yes, he was.
No, he wasn't. Shocker wasn't good.
What was wrong with Shocker? Tell me what was wrong with Shocker.
Shocker just brought nothing to the fucking movie.
He wasn't the main villain.
That's who Shocker is.
It wasn't. Okay, I will say it wasn't Shocker's fault.
That's just what Shocker is as a character.
He's like a side villain.
I would have liked to seen him highlighted more. He wasn't even a side villain. He was like a fucking 30-second villain.
Yes, because he was just a guy who got some stuff given to him by Adrian Toomes.
Shocker's like the guy that Peter stops from robbing the bank on the way to like deal with the real threat.
Right.
Like, that's
Right.
what Shocker is. Sometimes he's teamed up with some people and has a little more to say, but he's never been like the arch nemesis. He's never been like the Mysterio or the Goblin or the Doc Ock. Like,
Right. He was never like a main.
He wasn't meant to be emphasized too heavily in Homecoming. Whereas in the other 2 movies, the bad villains were emphasized as
Yeah, I
main
guess
villains.
there was no bad villain in MCU.
and he was used really well to showcase how not to fucking handle these situations.
Yes.
I love Michael Keaton accidentally killing the first Shocker. He's like, here, you're Shocker now.
Oh yeah,
Michael
forgot
Keaton's
about
just
that.
fucking amazing.
What did he say? He's like, wait, that wasn't the whatchamacallit gun?
Yeah, right. Because he thought he was using a different weapon.
It just popped.
That wasn't the,
you're
that wasn't the
Shocker now.
anti-gravity gun.
Yeah, and then he just shrugs it off like,
Yeah, you're
oh, well.
Shocker now. Yeah.
I mean, what's done is done.
Michael Keaton is so fucking good.
He's perfect. And I don't know if you guys ever really picked up on the symbolism of the one part of the MCU gives me chills every time when Michael Keaton has Peter Parker in his car and he stopped at that red light and he's kind of talking to him.
We didn't even talk about that.
As soon as he figures out, I'm talking about it right now. As soon as he figures out he's Spider-Man, the light turns green on his face. I don't know how many people picked up on that, but like the look in his eyes and then the light turns green on his face.
You know what I really like? He realized it and still gave him a chance to just walk away from this.
Plus, they had that super iconic moment from the comics where Peter Parker is trapped underneath a bunch of stuff and he starts to give up and thinks he might not make it. He might not live, but then he finds the power in himself to lift it.
Yeah, and the scene at the end in the prison when like he knows who Peter Parker is, but Peter
still doesn't
saved
tell.
his life.
Doesn't
and
rat him out.
keeps that secret.
He saved his daughter's life, and he saved his life. So yeah, I mean, he in some level respects him.
I'm just surprised they actually let Vulture of all people be that fleshed out. Like that generally, you don't generally get.
No, he was a crazy old man with Alzheimer's almost.
As a natural transition, Vulture was supposed to be a villain for Sam Raimi's Spider-Man 4, played by John Malkovich.
I guess that might have worked.
That was
but
a
I don't know.
true thing.
Don't want to see it because I saw Spider-Man 3.
The Amazing Spider-Man movies also missed out an opportunity. They introduced Black Cat in the second movie, and then they never paid that off.
That was Jen Erso
Oh, okay.
Oh yeah.
from the overrated Rogue
We
One
also
movie.
were going to do the Sinister Six with Andrew Garfield, but that never ended up happening.
I mean,
Right.
yeah, and it's pretty clear that was the direction they were going to head based on
That one guy's walking down the hallway with the vulture wings in the display case.
Yeah, I
knockoffs
mean, not even
arms.
just that, but like the villains from the first two, like, and the setup for that was pretty clear.
And when they were down in Oscorp with the fucking awful scene with Harry Osborn. Sorry. I'm done shitting on that awful fucking
No,
movie.
I mean, you're right about Harry Osborn and the Amazing Spider-Man. I can't argue
Yeah.
there. Like, it's just that was probably one of its biggest flubs.
This is when we insert the Charles Barkley. That's terrible. That's just terrible.
They made some unnecessary changes to the storyline, so to say, in that.
Can we do this? Can we talk about the Sam Raimi movies so Adrian can be happy?
Yes.
Look at him; he's chomping at the bit.
Let's finish this podcast by talking about the greatest.
You see, you say that, but I feel like we're going to touch on the third movie, so we're going to end this on a bad note.
Which was still a great movie minus Venom.
That movie was hot garbage in every sense.
It was not hot garbage.
Before Adrian goes, I want to say one thing. Thank you for listening to Culture Shocked. If you want to listen to any of our other episodes, we're not letting Adrian do this.
So nobody wants to talk about the greatest trilogy in the Spider-Man franchise.
Well, wait. Actually, Adrian, let's hear from these guys first because they haven't had as much to say about them.
Please.
What do you guys like and dislike about the Raimi movies?
There's very little I dislike, honestly.
There's very you like or dislike?
Dislike.
Yeah, well, then what'd you like?
There's not much that I disliked about it either.
Yeah, what were your favorite parts?
What
What was your favorite of the three? First one?
No, the second one's my favorite movie of the three.
What?
Listen, no, I love Willem Dafoe as
Amazing
Green Goblin,
rage.
I just want to talk so much. Go
but
ahead.
I think that the way the story in the second movie is just far better to me. I can like the villain better in the first one, and still like the story better in the second.
I'm just surprised, like, because the first one heavily focuses on
I love Doc Ock so much, like his portrayal in that movie and the actual story. Like you feel way worse for him than you do for Norman Osborn. So they drove
why
that
he's
home.
a great villain.
Doc Ock is such a sympathetic character.
Actually, it's funny. Doc Ock is a much better Dr. Freeze from Batman.
There's
Same
something
character, much better.
There's something I don't like about the Sam Raimi movies, and it's MJ. She's absolutely annoying to me. Like she just comes off. I don't know. Like she spoke like in the comics. She's a lot. I don't know. She seems more damsel in distressy than she does. Like seems like she's like a go getter and like in.
Oh man, you're not watching the right.
Yeah, dude. She
was like a sassy fucking.
Yeah, but
she's a fiery
yeah, she was a fiery redhead in the comics.
Her nickname for Peter is like Tiger. It's like she's not like a fucking.
I don't know.
Gwen was way more of a damsel in the comics than.
I don't know if I meant.
Well, yeah, I'm not talking about. I'm talking about in the movies. She seemed more damsel in distressy than.
Oh,
like,
you said that.
Oh,
the other
you
way
said it
around.
backwards the first time.
Yeah. You said in the comics. she was
no.
more
In the
okay.
comics, I'm great with her. Like, but no, in the movies, I don't think Kirsten Dunst did a great job.
No, you're right. She should have been a little more like confident and.
Yeah, even when she does the whole tiger line, like I don't feel it.
The version of Peter in those movies was also less confident than he would have been than he was portrayed from that era as well. That's why
the version of
that
Peter in
character.
those movies was amazing.
Well, that's true.
No, that's Andrew Garfield.
Oh yeah, fuck. I keep getting these mixed up.
I love
I don't know if
Tobey
I
Maguire's
don't.
Peter. Let me fucking talk, Adrian. I love
Can I finish?
Peter Parker's Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker. Like think
You're going
about yeah, I know. It's because of fucking Adrian. Think about the 90s cartoon, right? Was that Peter shy and awkward?
In the 90s cartoon?
Yeah. No, he wasn't.
No, not really.
He was a pretty fucking confident guy.
I would say the Peter in the third movie, even before he became Bully Maguire, was pretty confident.
I don't know. 90s cartoon Peter was still, I mean, he wasn't like super awkward, but he wasn't super
He's not the kind of
confident.
guy who would have been afraid to say, "Fix the door." Is what I'm trying to
fix the damn door.
But everybody was a little different like that, though.
Is it possible that, Tobey Maguire's Peter Parker is awkward and not as confident in the beginning because he just came out of high school? He's just fresh from college. Because, like, I feel in the third movie he's a lot less like maybe not a lot less awkward.
They love
but
me.
He seems like he has more confidence, especially after he becomes Bully Maguire. But that's
just
because
the
of the symbiote. Yeah.
Yeah, like, and that happens to him in everything he's in. He becomes, at first he loves it. He becomes like this just more calm and cooler dude, but then he starts turning into a total prick, which they got that aspect right. It's just the way that they portrayed it is so stupid.
So fucking bad. But I will, hold on. I will give Adrian this. Because of how bad that was, it has created a line of memes that are excellent.
Yeah. I hope Bully Maguire doesn't go anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, that is funny. I'll never rewatch that movie again as long as I live, but that is funny.
It's not a good movie, but it's not as bad as everybody makes it out to be.
We got him to say it's not a good movie.
It's not a good movie. I admit that.
I 100%, if I put on Spider-Man 1 and 2, I'm watching 3 every time.
It's not a bad movie.
I really hate it.
I don't know. I don't know if I can handle. I can't handle Topher Grace in that movie at all.
It makes me angry.
If you take out Venom, who was forced, he was forced in that movie from the bigger picture. Sam Raimi did not want to put Venom in that movie. He wanted to focus on Sandman and James Franco. That's what he wanted to do.
Well, okay, but that's fair and all.
Why did he ruin his movie?
Sony forced Venom in that movie.
He didn't have to pick Topher Grace.
Why did he pick Topher Grace?
Because he didn't understand the character.
Why did he write? Then he should have did research.
He readily admitted, I don't understand Venom. I don't want this character in my movie. But Sony is making me put him in this movie. If you take out that force feed of Venom, it's still a good movie. The emo Peter, the Bully Maguire, that is Sam Raimi humor. He meant to do that.
I didn't like. He may have meant to do it, but I didn't like.
That is Sam Raimi fucking humor to the T. He is goofy. He makes more horror movies. He's not familiar with this genre. This is Sam Raimi.
He seemed pretty familiar in 1 and 2.
Yeah, but
3 just felt like a parody of like the Spider-Man trilogy. Like, to me, that's why I dislike.
And there was a bit of resentment from Sam Raimi for this movie, for what Sony fucking did to him, because he wanted to make his vision, and Sony force-fed, like I talked about earlier, I think this was off podcast, but with Jon Favreau, with the original Iron Man and Iron Man 2, with them forcing him to make such a bland villain.
Whiplash.
Sam Raimi, Whiplash.
I can't remember his name. He is very
Sam Raimi wanted to do his villains. He didn't want to put Venom in there, but Sony said, well, guess what? Venom is the villain that everybody knows in Spider-Man. So put Venom in there. It'll sell more tickets.
Sony was not wrong to tell him that, because that was true.
I was stoked.
Everybody wanted to see Venom.
By then, everybody was clamoring for Venom.
But Sam Raimi had a bigger picture in mind. He had more than 3 movies envisioned. Venom maybe could have been included in a future movie.
But that doesn't change what we got.
That's because they forced Venom into the movie.
That's irrelevant.
How is that irrelevant? They changed
it. Yes, it was changed.
You took a director's image. You took a director's image of a movie and you changed it.
We don't have that movie. We'll never have that movie. It doesn't matter. We'll never have it.
It does. How does that not? That is the
You're
worst
not
argument.
listening. You're
Hey,
not
Mike, you
listening.
want to go start our own podcast?
Maybe.
Go ahead, Doug. How does that not matter?
Because we'll never get that movie, so we only have this one. So we have to judge this movie. That movie doesn't exist, and unfortunately,
It does matter.
but we can't watch it. So it doesn't. I can't judge that movie. I've never seen it, and I'll never get to see it. I can only judge the one I see.
I just don't get that argument that it doesn't matter.
Because I can't watch the other movie. It's
Because
not
it doesn't
there.
exist.
It's not. There is no other movie. He wanted another movie, but we don't get it. And yes, that's Sony's fault. And I'm not faulting Sam Raimi for it, but this is what we have. This is the one that exists. And it's unfortunate that it's not what he wanted to make, but it's what we have. And I dislike what we have. I would have loved to see the one he wanted to make, but I can't.
Can I throw out what's going to be controversial for me? I think Venom's funny. It doesn't bother me at all. I think it's hilarious.
I think I just died a little inside.
In the Spider-Man 3?
You think
I think
Topher
it's
Grace is
hilarious.
Venom?
Yep, I think it's funny.
Oh my god, no.
It does not bother me.
I think Topher Grace's Venom fits within that movie, and I agree with you there. But listen, here's what Sam Raimi did, and this is a guy that directed horror movies. He was best friends with Bruce Campbell, which is why Campbell is in all three of those movies. He took a 3-movie arc and he made it about responsibility, choice, and forgiveness. He took these 3 movies that all had 3 different themes, and that's something that I haven't seen since. And to me, it's brilliantly executed in all 3 movies.
You know what they say, 2 out of 3 ain't bad.
And guess what? With great power comes great responsibility. That's something that Amazing Spider-Man couldn't live up to. That's something that the MCU movies couldn't live up to.
Whoa, you're
I
wrong
think
there.
you're jumping the fence.
Rosemary Harris is the best Aunt May of all time. These movies have the most heart of any of the movies.
2 of them do.
This is the series that shows Peter Parker struggling as a human more than any of these
For 2 of
movies
the
have.
movies.
And the 3rd movie, he's still struggling.
I need you to explain to me how you don't think the MCU Spider-Man isn't about like having great responsibility with power.
How the MCU movies?
Yeah, I mean, look, the very first movie is literally about him struggling on how to be good with his abilities.
But there's no fucking consequences. He has fucking Iron Man handing him all of his suits. The Sam Raimi movies have this poor kid with this poor aunt with his uncle who's his father figure that died, and he has nothing. This is just a broken kid and a broken family. He doesn't know his parents. It's fucking I just love the themes of the 3 movies.
I mean, yeah, you're right. He struggles more than any of the other Peter Parkers or Spider-Man, but you're crazy if you say that Tom Holland didn't struggle and he had everything handed to him. Just because he got suits given to him doesn't mean he didn't struggle.
By a billionaire in the Avengers.
So
But
what? He still struggled.
Still faced his villain on his own. He had no help.
He almost died
was like,
multiple times.
What do you mean he had no help? He had this fucking robot that came up to him after that fucking...
After the fight with Vulture, he was kicked. The shit was kicked out of him. Vulture was like fucking laying under shit. Like his ass was beat, and he still like managed to like fucking be the hero.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think I do love Homecoming because he managed to overcome the Vulture in spite of Tony taking away his suit, which I do like that.
Which was the whole point. It was to show you that even without that suit, he's Spider-Man.
But still, between Civil War, Homecoming, Infinity War, Far From Home, Endgame, he is given all this stuff from a billionaire. The Sam Raimi trilogy is just Tobey Maguire. It's just, he doesn't have any resources. He makes this all by himself. He wants to avenge his uncle. He wants to do the right thing. I don't know.
Because he did the wrong thing once and it cost him.
He didn't do the wrong thing. That man killed himself. That man backed out of a window and fell.
No. That isn't what I was referring to.
What did he do wrong?
I don't see how that's my problem.
He let him go when he could have stopped him.
Which was a lesson learned.
It's a lesson learned, like in all the Spider-Man movies.
Tom Holland didn't have to let the villain go to learn a lesson.
That's because the origin story was already done.
I know, I'm just fucking with you.
They skip past the origin story.
I think you're detracting from the MCU version of Spider-Man quite a bit too much, though.
You talk about how Tom Holland's getting all of his suits and everything from Iron Man. I mean, at least they explain how his suit comes to be. Can we talk about how Peter Parker suddenly became like an excellent tailor?
He's a fucking...
I think that is kind of like trial and error, mostly.
But that's a comic book. Like that seems to be in like every comic book origin story. Somehow they suddenly become the greatest tailor in the world.
Not the first guy.
That suit eventually became way too good for Tobey Maguire to have made it.
Almost like it was like computer generated.
I would like to point out, in Far From Home, most of the movie, Tom Holland has like the Night Monkey suit. He doesn't even take Tony's suit.
He's just running around in like a fucking sweatpants and shit, basically. Before I forget to bring it up, my actual favorite scene from the Raimi trilogy is into when he stops the train and the people on the subway realize that Spider-Man's just a kid.
No older than my son.
Yeah, and they stand in front of him.
They all look at that 35-year-old man and say he's just a kid.
Yeah, I know.
Don't worry, we won't tell anybody.
When Doc Ock like comes after him, they like get in front of him and like defend him after he stops it, and he's like there are a lot of good moments, and I'll never say there aren't. It's just 3 really hurt my opinion of it as a whole, but 1 and 2 on their own are fantastic.
And 3 is not a bad movie, other than one awful casting choice, one awful villain.
It's the one I cared about the most in the movie, though. And the way Peter acted, I just couldn't stand it.
Adrian, nobody's saying that like it's Sam Raimi's fault for what happened. Like nobody's trying. I know you were trying to like defend him and try to explain that he didn't even want Venom in the movie, but like it's the problem is that it exists. Like the problem is that it's there. The third movie is the thing. Venom is absolutely the worst part of that movie,
and I don't fault Sam Raimi for that. For the record,
I don't fault him for it either. Should he have done more research maybe to make it make it better? Absolutely. But he was forced to do something that he didn't want to do.
He was in a time crunch. He wasn't given time to research. He was told by a big fucking production studio that we need to put somebody in to sell more tickets.
He did the best with what he could.
If you tell any director to put something in their movie that they're not comfortable with, it's gonna show on screen.
Again, I don't blame him for what happened. I just don't like it. You're getting defensive because you think we're insulting Sam Raimi and what he did with what he had, and we're not.
But I'm honestly saying, when any director is given limitations and handcuffs on what they can do and what they need to include, it's gonna show in the final product.
And I get that, but that doesn't change that I dislike what it came out of it.
Adrian, I will full on agree that if you take Venom out of the third movie, it would be a decent to good movie.
Yeah,
because then the black suit would go too, and he wouldn't turn into that like weird dancing emo guy.
And you'd have fucking Danny Elfman.
But unfortunately, Venom is in that movie.
He is.
Topher Grace fucked the whole thing up.
And I love Venom, and I hate fucking Topher Grace as Eddie Brock.
You could even have the entire storyline where the symbiote comes down and connects to Peter Parker, and then have that movie end that he got it off of him and put it in a jar and gave it to Kurt Connors. Later on, Venom comes into it.
Absolutely. That would have been way better.
From all of the arguments we've all made about the MCU Spider-Man, the the Mark Webb Amazing Spider-Man movies, and
they were amazing, you're right.
Nicely done. And I know the Sam Raimi, definitely cheesy. I agree with that. Spider-Man didn't quip very much. I feel like the cheese was honestly intended by Sam Raimi because that's his style. I think he meant to include the cheesiness in there. Just to take this trilogy and to break it down to one character and like one movie fault, I don't think it's fair. The first 2 movies are some of the greatest superhero movies of all time.
I don't disagree. Spider-Man
2 is still regarded as one of, if not the best superhero movie of all time. And just to break that down to Venom,
it used to be.
To me, I don't know. It doesn't make much sense.
I mean, I'm not faulting the entire trilogy. I do not like 3. I love 1 and 2. 2 is my favorite villain, and he was perfectly acted. I don't even find 1 and 2 cheesy, like, at all. I think that was the biggest, another issue I had with 3 was, like, it just felt so sudden. That's why I said 3 felt like a parody of the first 2.
I understand that.
If think about Sam Raimi, he did Evil Dead 1 and 2, which was mostly horror with some comedy.
That's
and
true.
Then what was Army of Darkness? It was all cheese and comedy.
You get the Evil Dead tones in Spider-Man 2 with that hospital scene.
Evil Dead 2 is actually basically a parody of Evil Dead 1.
But that's my whole thing, though, is like 3 felt like it was just all the seriousness. Like, there were moments in 1 and 2 that had like cheesy aspects, but for the most part they remained serious and like on point and focused. 3 just felt like it just threw that all away and was like, fuck it. It was disappointing to me. It felt like it was like mocking itself. Like, that is why it was like, why?
I understand that. Obviously, we've talked about like our general movie episode, our TV episode, our video game episode, and I just resonate with something that has heart, that has message. I think these scenes between Peter and Aunt May in this movie with Rosemary Harris is the most heart I've ever seen on screen between Peter and Aunt May. I just think the themes of all 3 movies with, like forgiveness and acceptance and responsibility. I don't know. To me, just all 3 of these movies, even though 3 isn't great, I admit that, all 3 of these movies have something larger to say. And to me, that just resonates very deep.
Do you really not feel like there, like a lot of the scenes in the MCU, like Tom Holland's Spider-Man doesn't show heart against Vulture at the end, or like when he's holding the boat together as it's like about to tear him in fucking half?
Which is a copy of the train scene.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously it was influenced.
A carbon copy. There is heart definitely when he's picking up the building, or picking up the the remains that fall on him when he's begging for help. I do love that. To me, just, I don't know.
And then helps Vulture anyway.
Right. I love that. You know how I feel about a lot of MCU movies, though? Like, I feel like they're very formulaic. They're very same. That's the reason I love the original Iron Man. I love Winter Soldier. They feel different.
Well, the Russo brothers are just different.
A lot of Marvel movies just feel the same to me. Like, it's a formula.
It is.
And to me, it just, the MCU Spider-Man movies do have heart. They don't have the heart of the Sam Raimi trilogy.
Like when he got hit by a train.
That formula that you're talking about is called comic books.
Yeah.
But it's so formulaic. They can't take any moment too seriously because they have to throw a joke in there. I
don't think that's true.
That is true.
In the first 2 Avengers movies, because that's what Joss Whedon does, they were pretty bad.
Joss Whedon's a different monster.
As far as like throwing in like comedy that shouldn't be in there sometimes, Joss Whedon is
I'm
famous
mostly
for
just
that.
trying to stick to the Spider-Man movies right now.
But
right,
in regards to this,
right.
Yeah, they make comedy and a lot.
I'm gonna say something controversial. I actually, at times, I kind of prefer Joss Whedon's comedy in the first Avengers and the Age of Ultron. I kind of feel like it doesn't take it out of the scene as much.
In the first Avengers, it's really well done.
Iron Man is always cracking jokes and stuff most of the time.
There are definitely some good moments in Age of Ultron.
I just feel like it doesn't detract as much. I love the comedy in Marvel movies, but sometimes I feel like they just can't take anything too seriously.
I feel like they save the raw seriousness for the big moments instead of like every little serious moment. Other than the Guardians, but they're not supposed to take it seriously ever.
You got to sprinkle a little bit of humor in there. I mean, otherwise, like if it's too dark, like DC.
We've all seen how well that worked.
If you go too dark, sometimes you don't have any humor. It seems to miss its mark.
Yeah, I don't know. I get where you're coming from, especially with the DC comparison, but sometimes it just misses the mark where I feel like it could have hit harder emotionally, and then they throw a joke in there. I'm like, fuck, that kind of took me out of the moment. Like, I could have almost cried there, and then they put a fucking joke in, and I'm like, God damn it.
Question. Guardians 2, they're falling down. He calls him Mary Poppins, and he's like, I'm Mary Poppins, And he's like, at first he's mocking him, but then he's like, nah, you really are. Did that detract from that moment for you? Because to me, that was why it was good.
Personally, I don't know. It kind of took away from the moment.
I mean, that's just that character. That is how that character always is.
And sometimes maybe I don't fully understand these characters, but I just, like I've told you my favorite movies of all time. You know my
if you
list.
go looking for the Shawshank,
Yeah, exactly. I'm not saying every movie should be the Shawshank Redemption, but I just feel like fucking there's some serious. I feel like Marvel does a great job, like, and there's some serious moments that could really hit a lot harder if they didn't throw a fucking Rocket Raccoon fucking boom joke in there, like when they're putting together the fucking Infinity Gauntlet.
Oh, please don't get into the Guardians of the Galaxy and that being anything bad about those. Please don't.
Talking about Endgame.
yeah. Well, the Guardians, they get
Still.
a pass. This is what they do. That is the Guardians. Yeah.
But it's supposed to be 5 years later, and Rocket Raccoon's supposed to be a member of the Avengers. He's supposed to be more serious.
Nah, he'll never read.
That's
They put this glove together and then fucking boom.
He was like a fucking experimented on and shit.
Like,
and he's
I
a
love-
total prick. That's just Rocket Raccoon.
I
It's
love
just-
when he asks.
I'm just giving
I
you my
love-
honest opinion. It takes away a
When he
little
asks
bit.
Winter Soldier, like, how much for the arm?
I'm gonna get that arm. I'm gonna get that arm.
what I think is Adrian needs to stop going into these movies expecting serious moments all the time.
Yeah.
I'm not expecting serious moments all the time. I expect it's the Marvel formula. I expect these jokes, but there's
Like
just
Civil
hard hitting
War.
There's just hard hitting moments that like the humor takes away. Humor doesn't always need to be. That's
The best moments don't.
You
have
love
that,
so
though.
many sitcoms that do that same thing.
that's sitcoms.
What's the difference?
What's the difference between sitcoms and a fucking
It's a
MCU
comic book
What's the difference
blockbuster?
between sitcoms that have that same moment where it's hard hitting and then a joke is made and that scene ends? What's the difference?
That's a reason that sometimes I like How I Met Your Mother more than Friends. They take those moments more serious, whereas Friends makes a joke.
I disagree.
This is the wrong episode for that. Wrong episode for that.
I'm giving an example. Corey said sitcoms.
I know.
So I'm saying How I Met Your Mother takes these moments seriously without making a joke. Friends has
Which
to
is
make
why-
light of
which is why I
everything.
like How I Met Your Mother less.
All right, well, that's agree to disagree. I wish they would take some moments more seriously.
I think there's enough serious moments in the MCU.
I personally like that they reserved the raw seriousness for the biggest moments instead
Yeah,
of
me too.
making them all.
Like there was not one joke thrown in there the entire end fight with Thanos in Endgame.
Yeah, that was raw.
It was all serious.
and then he died. No
Then
one
he
joked
died
about
and it faded to the next scene. There really wasn't any more jokes in that movie, actually. At that
the
point.
closest thing to a joke is when Falcon asked Cap to tell him about his life, and he's just said, "Nah, I don't think I will."
Oh, there's Paul Rudd saying, "You mean to tell me Back to Future's bullshit?"
That's way before that, man.
That was it. That was like 3 hours before that scene.
What are you talking about,
Oh,
He said, "Oh,
dude? When they go into the quantum realm to go back in time, that's when they bring Thanos back.
I'm like, do you just check out and like
No,
catch
no,
on to,
no,
like
no.
a few words one of us say and try to
I didn't say
jump
the
it.
entire movie of Endgame. I
well,
said
that's what it sounded like. You said was
No,
the
no,
entire.
I said-
there wasn't a funny moment in most of
no.
the
I
entire
said
movie.
there's no funny part in that last fight, and then I said, "Oh, I don't think there's even a funny part after."
well,
that at
guess
all."
what? After 22, 23 movies, they finally took themselves seriously for the last
They do that. in
20
every
minutes
one.
of Endgame."
But even in the battle with Thanos, there's that moment with Peter Parker and Captain Marvel. That seemed like that was meant to be a humorous moment, and you just said that there wasn't a funny moment in that whole entire scene.
What was funny about that?
What's funny about that?
You're gonna tell me that wasn't meant to
I-
be humorous?
Tell me, he talks to her for a minute. What are you talking
When-
about?
She's like-
when he's
she
buried down and
when she
she's
just
like-
simply goes, "Hello, Peter Parker."
Right, and he's
like-
like, and when he's buried
That was
down
it was
after,
meant to make people kind of go, "Huh,"
I'm Peter Parker, and
Okay,
she's like,
and did
"Hello,
that take
Peter
away from
Parker."
the moment?
kinda.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It did not.
And then that led
Kinda
me.
That's
did.
exactly Captain Marvel is that powerful that she gets to do that stuff in serious moments because she's Captain fucking
And
Marvel.
and then Peter's like, "Hello, my name's like when he gets carried by like the flying Icarus or whatever."
This
like,
is really hard to have a conversation like about comic stuff like this with people that don't.
I know. I can't take this. It's killing me.
It's killing me.
which is also why I prefer like I said, like Iron Man movies. I just love the heart in that movie, and there is comedy, but I feel like it's better paced. You don't have to put in a comedy per 15 seconds just to get a laugh.
If I wanted comic book anything that took itself too seriously, I'd switch and start reading DC comics. But I'm
Dark
gonna stick
Horse.
with or Dark Horse. I'm gonna stick with my Marvel. I think.
I'm not talking about comics though. I'm talking about the movies. It's formulaic with the fucking Russo brother.
as people that read these, we go to these movies wanting what we get on the
Yes,
page.
exactly.
So we want something different than you want.
I feel like I'm speaking my opinion as a casual fan. You guys are speaking your opinion as a comic fan. I get that. As a casual fan, the Russo brothers, they insert comedy every...
The Russo, that's Winter Soldier.
No, I'm saying...
Russo brothers did Endgame
who
and
is,
Infinity.
yeah, and Kevin Feige or whatever, they insert their comedy every 3.6 seconds, and sometimes I could do without it. It's very formulaic. That's what they do.
I don't know. I think for the most part, the MCU movies are fucking perfect.
I'm right there with you, Corey.
There's a few exceptions, but
And this will probably be our last 4-man comic episode. But stay tuned for me and Corey to talk about how great comics are in the future.
I would actually disagree. I don't think that they add comedy every like 3.6 seconds, though.
All right,
There's
you're right.
definitely
You're
a lot
right.
of
2.8
huge serious.
2.8
oh
seconds.
my god! There's definitely a lot of huge serious moments in those movies that hit home for sure.
Are you telling me Marvel doesn't have a formula that so many other companies have tried to copy now because Marvel has been so successful?
How the hell are they going to come out with 23 movies? How the hell are they going to come out with 23 movies and not have a formula? Obviously, it works. So why would they go away from it?
Well, it's become a formula with like the new the original Iron Man. Compare that to movies now, and it's like a completely different landscape. And I prefer the older movies. Like I don't prefer this new format.
Could that be because you're 10 years older and an aging millennial?
Arguably.
Maybe it is, but maybe it's because
And that's why this is perfect for our podcast.
Maybe it's because the original Iron Man has heart, and they didn't know it was going to be this huge fucking universe, and they were just making a movie that they were passionate about.
Oh no, that was planned.
No. Talk to Jon Favreau. It was not.
It
planned.
had the first end.
Talk
credit
to Jon
scene.
Favreau. It was not planned to be this.
It was
big
planned
universe.
before we saw the movie.
Nick Fury was at the end of the movie.
And Adrian's saying it wasn't meant to be this big. Like it was never meant to be 23 movies.
What Jon Favreau means by that is he didn't know if it would go anywhere. They planned it to go somewhere. He didn't know if it would.
You don't just like execute a 23 movie like universe without it being planned out.
Jon Favreau made a passion project about Iron Man.
I think as soon as they started realizing how successful this was going to be, that's before the first Avengers.
Until Disney got their fucking claws in it.
Like, I don't think they realized it was going to be as big as it got.
This has been too well executed to not have been planned.
There was an MCU before Disney got their hands on it.
Yeah. He is one director of many.
I have watched
movies.
that interview you're talking about.
No, there's not just one interview. Watch all the YouTube videos about him talking about his passion project and Robert Downey Jr. talking about the original Iron Man and how they didn't plan it to get to this point. And it did get to this point, and that's fucking great. And I love these Marvel movies, but I just feel like there was more put
I just feel like you're using the wrong word.
What's the word?
Planned is wrong because they 100% planned to have these movies. Kevin Feige 100% planned for Iron Man to go further.
I don't think Jon Favreau planned to have...
Jon Favreau was not the creator of Iron Man movie. He directed it. It was not his plan. It was his vision.
I don't think he envisioned a 25 movie series.
No, he didn't create Vision.
There you go. Envisioned is the right word.
He may have not envisioned it, but it was thought out and planned ahead of time.
And I'm just saying, I prefer the raw heart of a fucking original Iron Man over an Avengers Endgame. That's all I'm saying. I'm sorry if you don't agree with me.
No, I just disagree with the statement that the other stuff doesn't have raw heart.
Here's the thing. You're talking about the formula and everything of the newer movies. If you want the kind of movie that you're talking about, go watch Iron Man 3. Go watch Thor Dark World, which, by the way, are arguably the worst movies in the MCU.
Iron Man 3?
Iron Man 3 is pretty good.
I think you're mixing some stuff.
No, I'm talking about like when they first came out, a lot of people complained about both of them. I mean, Thor Dark World to me is absolutely the worst one, but
I mean, that's pretty much accepted.
But no, those two movies, a lot of people, most people, maybe not you two, but most people they didn't resonate with them so well because they were darker. They had the heavier moments. And
if you really look into it, Iron Man 2 actually did worse in every category.
Iron
Really?
Man 2 was just not, because 1 was really good and 2
Justin
wasn't.
Hammer.
And 3 was really good.
Do you know what Iron Man had? It had a shit ton of heart, like the Sam Raimi Spider-Man series. It had heart. It had emotion. It had these conversations between Peter Parker and Aunt May that MCU movies didn't have between Tom Holland and Marissa Tomei.
I believe We have all just hit our collective proverbial brick walls, though, on this topic. There's not much more any of us can say.
Oh, that's not true, but I think we should stop.
Yeah. Oh, no, there's more I can say.
Sam Raimi's the best series of Spider-Man movies.
And with that, I think that brings this episode to an end. Any last words?
You probably shouldn't ask that.
Tom Holland is the best Spider-Man / Peter Parker.
Tobey Maguire. Tobey Maguire.
I'm a Tom Holland fanboy. I love Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man, or Peter Parker. Love Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man, but Tom Holland's perfect in both roles.
All three have merit to me, but I am in love with these current Tom Holland movies, and I loved Andrew Garfield, and I love Tobey Maguire.
Yeah, let's just put a disclaimer in there now that I think we all like all those movies.
Oh, yeah.
I fucking love Spider-Man, and as a quick aside, I might actually like Miles Morales into the Spider-Verse better than all of these anyway, so it's hard to say.
It's fucking amazing.
Such a good movie.
I'm hoping they add him to the MCU.
If Tom Holland wouldn't have come along and been the perfect Spider-Man / Peter Parker, I think I would prefer the Sam Raimi movies over the MCU ones. But Tom Holland is just so good at it. I'm sorry, I just can't. I mean, it makes the MCU Spider-Man movies so much more enjoyable.
I'm gonna put some dirt in your eye.
I'm a simp for the MCU.
Sorry, I prefer the original Iron Man.
I am too. But with that being said, that's going to bring us to the end of the show. Thanks for sharing your time with us again this week. If you're new here and could stand listening to us argue about, the Sam Raimi movies just don't hold up to the MCU, you should consider subscribing to the show and join us next week. From all of us at Culture Shock, thanks for listening.
Sam Raimi.